Hey everyone. So today we're going to talk about a really fascinating glitch in the way we think. It's a mental shortcut that makes us believe a really detailed story is somehow more likely to be true than a simple fact. To show you what I mean, let's just kick things off with a little puzzle. All right, I'm going to ask you a question that seems pretty simple on the surface, but I promise you, the answer reveals something pretty profound about how our minds really work. So let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a guy named Chris. Back in college, Chris was the captain of the football team, super popular, star athlete. He was also a really bright student and had this deep interest in coding. So I want you to get that image of him in your head. Okay, now let's fast forward 10 years. Which one of these two scenarios do you think is more probable? A, Chris is a visual artist, or B, Chris is a visual artist who also plays football. Now just go with your gut here. Which one feels more likely? I'm guessing most of you are leaning towards B, right? I mean, the detail about football just seems to fit the picture we have of Chris. And here's the kicker. The mathematically correct answer is A. Yeah, if you're a little surprised right now, you are definitely not alone. This is a classic demonstration of a cognitive bias that trips up almost everybody. So the real question is why? Why do our brains so consistently make this exact mistake? Well, this little mental error actually has a formal name, and understanding it is absolutely key to clearer thinking. Let's put a label on what we just experienced. It's called the conjunction fallacy. So, what is it exactly? Well, the conjunction fallacy is basically our brain's tendency to be totally seduced by detail. We see a specific scenario, like Chris as an artist and a football player, and because it paints a richer, more complete picture, we mistakenly judge it as more probable than the much broader, more general category of Chris simply being a visual artist. Now, what's really interesting here is the fundamental rule of logic this fallacy violates. Think of it like a Venn diagram. Imagine you have a big circle that represents all the visual artists in the world. Now, where would the circle of visual artists who also play football go? It has to be a smaller circle inside that bigger one, right? It's a subset. So logically, the probability of two things happening together can never, ever be greater than the probability of just one of them happening. The logic is completely airtight. So why does our intuition fight it so hard? Well, the answer lies in the way our brains are wired to think fast, not necessarily deep. Let's break down the psychological reasons for this very common mistake. There are really three big cognitive traps at play here. First is something called representativeness. Our fast-thinking brain, our system 1, creates this quick stereotype of Chris as an athletic guy. The story that includes football represents that stereotype better, so we automatically think it's more probable. Second, there's emotional dissonance. The idea of the football captain becoming just a visual artist feels a little off, you know? It creates a little mental conflict. Adding the football details soothes that conflict and makes the story feel more whole. And finally, this is all rooted in our evolution. Building quick stereotypes was a survival skill for our ancestors. You know, rustling in the bushes means danger. It favored speed way over accuracy. And this right here, this is the crucial point. Our brain isn't sitting there running the numbers on probability. It's running a quick story check for plausibility. A detailed, coherent narrative just feels right, and our intuition mistakes that feeling of rightness for a sign of higher mathematical probability. And listen, this isn't just some fun party trick. This fallacy creeps into really critical real-world judgments about risk, about value, about all kinds of decisions we make every day. Let's move on and see just how big the consequences can be. Okay, let's try another example. Which of these sounds more probable to you? Option A, a massive flood somewhere in East Asia kills 500 people, or option B, a tsunami in Japan kills 500 people. Once again, a lot of people will instinctively pick B. Why? Because the stereotype of tsunamis in Japan creates this vivid movie in our minds. It's specific, it's memorable, and that makes it feel more plausible, even though, logically, it's just one very specific type of the much broader event described in A. But this fallacy doesn't just skew how we see risk. It can also mess with how we assign actual monetary value to things. There's a famous experiment that shows this perfectly. Check this out. In this experiment, people were shown two sets of dinnerware. Set A had 40 pieces in total, 24 of them were perfect, and 16 were slightly damaged. Set B had just the 24 perfect plates. Now, logically, set A is objectively more valuable, right? It has everything set B has, plus more. But incredibly, when people were asked to evaluate them separately, they were willing to pay more for set B. The presence of those broken plates created a negative story, a stereotype of damaged goods that dragged down the entire perceived value of set A in people's minds. It's wild. Okay, so we've established our brains are pretty prone to making this error. The good news is, once you can spot it, you can start to correct for it. So let's wrap up with a really practical mental model that can help you think more clearly. This is it. This is the key. The next time you encounter a story that feels incredibly convincing, especially because of all its rich, compelling details, I want you to just pause and ask yourself this one powerful question. Is this extra detail actually increasing the mathematical probability, or is it just making the story more vivid? And this slide right here, it sums up the entire lesson perfectly. It is a simple but really profound rule of thumb to carry around with you. More detail makes a story feel more plausible, more satisfying to our storyteller brains. But, and this is the crucial part, every single one of those details you add actually makes the scenario, statistically speaking, less probable. So, the final takeaway is this. We need to learn to trust the probabilities, not just the compelling stories that flatter them. The next time a detailed narrative really grabs you, whether it's in the news or an ad or just a simple conversation, take a moment. Ask yourself, is this a good story or is it the most likely one? Recognizing that difference is a genuine superpower for clearer thinking.